Good morning to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for Monday, October the 2nd, 2017. I'm currently in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I'll explain more about why that is in just a moment. First of all, taking a look at the 5-day tropical weather outlook, we do have an area to watch now in the Northwest Caribbean Sea, centered around the Yucatan Peninsula, the Yucatan Channel, and the southern Gulf of Mexico. A low chance of development over the next 5 days. And if we look at the satellite animation here, you can see, as I pull this up, what we're talking about. Fairly disorganized clouds and showers and storms, which is what we would expect right now, since this is more than 5 days away probably. Have a tropical wave and a disturbance moving through here. Let's make the line thicker. And that'll be moving off to the west with time. I don't see anything really developing from this. Upper level energy over here. You know, for the most part, everything is just discombobulated at the moment, and it'll probably remain that way over the next few days. I don't see anything in the global models to suggest anything very strong, but we're talking about at least 5 days away, and probably more like 7 or 8. You do see the frontal boundary draped across this area, nice and cool over the eastern United States for the most part. Still warm and very tropical down here in Florida, again where I am, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. But for the most part, nothing really to worry about over the next few days. By the way, can you hear that? There's stump grinding outside of my hotel room, grinding up all the debris from Hurricane Irma. Isn't that special? I'm not complaining. It's just that's what life is like down here in Florida as they recover from that powerful hurricane. Speaking of recovering, you folks here in the northern Lesser Antilles that had to deal with Irma and then Jose in some areas, and of course Maria, the good news is there are no tropical waves or organized systems headed your way. The bad news, in one respect, lots of sunshine, and so you're going to be sort of sweltering in that oppressive heat down there as the recovery process continues. But basically, the bottom line for this area over the next few days, watch it and see what happens. We have this loosely organized system, this monsoon gyre that's going to try to set up. And then we might even see something try to develop off of this area as well. But again, we are talking about at least 5 days out, and I don't see anything too concerning just yet. So as simple as that is, it is what it is. So let's switch gears and talk a little bit about why I am in Florida. So as you might recall, I set up a weather station with the help of a gentleman from New Jersey. His name is Mike Adams. He happened to come down to intercept the effects and study the effects, document them for his own interest of Irma, and he helped me out. It took us about an hour, and we set up the system right here near Marathon at the Vaca Bridge, at what's called the Vaca Cut down there. And so this is a radar shot, taken the screenshot at 2:28 in the morning, and you can see the eye wall of Irma at that time, and the eye itself 67 miles away from the weather station. So, it's pretty far away, and it was moving off towards the area between Marathon and Key West. If we advance and go on until just near sunrise that morning, the infamous morning there of September the 10th, now we see it's a lot closer. It's about 17 miles away from my weather station, but the worst part of the eye wall is probably right through here in terms of the relative location to my weather station. And as you can see, even though it looks close, as with the eclipse, doesn't cut it. And I use that analogy. People said, hey, it's going to be 99% where I am. I don't need to drive and see totality. Well, you were very wrong. And I know because I saw totality, and it was absolutely amazing. And so the same is very similar and true here for a hurricane, that my weather station being right here is not the same as it being right here. All right, and I think we can agree with that. That makes total sense. And so the wind readings that we got through here are not the same as if we had the weather station over here. So we go on through the frames here. This is a little bit later in the morning. Now the eye has crossed over the Keys, and now the wind is coming pretty much out of the south here into Marathon and across the weather station. So all that being said, here is a screenshot, or literally a photograph, of just a little bit of the data. This is a text file. Even though we lost communication with this little computer, it's called a Raspberry Pi, and it's a very small little computer. It's Linux-based, and our programmer, who lives and works in Raleigh, wrote the software to communicate with all the equipment and log it onto this computer, even if we can't communicate with it. So I was just scrolling through the text file. I just want to show you a few snapshots here. September the 10th, 10:17 in the morning. This is your average wind for that minute of 10:17, and this is the peak gust during that minute. And as you can see, there are a lot of them that are hurricane force. And this just covers a few minutes of time, 10, 11, 12 minutes. We have this for about 48 hours. So the data is solid and fantastic. Is it exceptional where everybody's going to be like, wow, those are some really high wind speeds? No. And the reason for that is I just showed you. Being here versus being here is two different things. It's not a failure. It's just a matter of, hey, we're going to plant the flag somewhere. Where's it going to be? And Mike and I, and it was my choice ultimately, set it up right there. And the eye went to the west of us. So you do what you do, and you know what it shows me, though, is this worked. Even though we lost communication because the network went down out there, this kept on recording, actually exactly as designed, and that is really big. So I'm going to boil this down and turn it into a different distributive methods to analyze it from a statistical standpoint. Our programmer is going to do that for us, and charts and graphs and plot all the peak gusts. We can look at 5-minute averages, 10-minute averages. There's a lot that we can do with that text file right there, and I'm actually going to put that text file, I'll rename it something else, on our server, and I'm going to tweet the link to it either tomorrow or Wednesday, and then anybody can download it and you can analyze it yourself. We also have pressure from that location, but I haven't jumped into that file just yet, and I'll post that. Clearly, since we were not in the eye, the pressure is not as important, but it can show us if we know what the pressure was at the lowest point at our weather station, and if we can get some kind of a pressure reading, it's probably going to be impossible from the eye. If somebody had a weather station there, then that can tell us a lot about what's called the pressure gradient, how fast the pressure dropped over a distance. That's called the gradient. In this case, a steep gradient probably, because it's a hurricane. So there's a little look at the data. I've retrieved all of the equipment. Everything was fine, and it performed exactly as designed. So I'm very happy about that. Placement in terms of getting the eye to go right over it, well, we just need to raise money and come up with more weather stations. And I'll be talking about that in the coming weeks, because that is a solvable problem. We just need the funding, and we can have even more weather stations out there, and we can make sure we capture the next Irma or the next Maria or what have you. Big things are coming up. I'm going to talk about that in the coming weeks. And in the meantime, of course, we will be monitoring the tropics. One more time, just to make it clear, nothing happening over the next few days. Probably going to take a week or so for something to gel and come together, and then we can see what happens at that point. But I'm not too worried about it just yet, and mainly because it's very early in the process. All right, well, that's it from me for today. Have a great rest of your Monday. Thanks, as always, for tuning in. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com in South Florida. I need to go over to Naples and Marco Island to grab the camera systems that were set up there. Then I fly back home to North Carolina tomorrow, and I'll have another update for you again probably tomorrow morning.